How's it going, Star Seekers? My name's Luke and welcome back to Star Wars Shovelware, where today we're going to be taking a look at a game called Knights and Guns. Coming to us from Baltoro Games, Knights and Guns is a fast-paced action arcade game which has you armed to the teeth with machine guns, grenade launchers and tons of other exotic weapons as you fight back against an army of mutants, demons, ghouls and ghosts in an attempt to restore order to your once peaceful homeland. Now, if you're a fan of the classic Pang and Buster Bros games, you'll no doubt find a lot to like with Knights and Guns. Its gameplay has a very similar appeal, so let's get into this review and check out what the game has to offer. So story-wise, Knights and Guns features your classic fantasy scenario where you and your allies have to save a kingdom from certain doom. Set in a medieval fantasy world, the game's introduction sees the world suddenly invaded by monsters which arrive through mysterious portals, and after swords prove ineffective against the demon horde, the knights turn to the unearthly power which summoned them, but which has also brought the tools to defeat them in the form of guns. Now, the game's opening stages see us playing as one of the valiant knights attempting to defend the city against the invaders, but amidst the chaos, the captain of the knights betrays his fellow soldiers, taking the power for himself before striking down the majority of his comrades, and so the game's story follows the surviving knight's journey as they attempt to put a stop to the demon invasion, and in the name of the fallen comrades, seek revenge against the renegade captain. So as I alluded to in the intro, gameplay in Knights and Guns draws influence from the likes of Pang or Buster Bros as it was known in the States, but instead of popping balloons with your harpoon, you're tasked with destroying enemies with an assortment of firearms, and it has a very arcade-like feel to its gameplay, taking place in individual arena-like levels. As with Pang, you're restricted to firing your weapon directly upwards at enemies, and many of these enemies split into multiple smaller enemies, so things can get pretty hectic if you're not selective with your shots. The game's control scheme though is pretty simple and intuitive, and it sees us moving our character with the D-pad or left analog, firing with the A button and jumping with the R trigger, and you also have a special ability which can be activated with Y once you've built up enough power, and a dash maneuver provides a way to quickly move across the arena and avoid taking damage. In general, I found the controls to be pretty solid, but I did find that character movement felt a little slippery at times, and the brief pause which happens each time you change directions did feel a little odd to start with. Now, both the main campaign and endless mode can be played either solo or with another player, and while playing alone is still plenty of fun, things do get rather tough as you get further into the game, and so teaming up with a partner is likely how you're going to get the most enjoyment out of it, especially if you're a more casual gamer. After working your way through the introductory levels, you then dropped into a large grid-like world map which you navigate across to progress the storyline, and I really like the way that this added an element of exploration to the game, giving players the freedom to complete levels in whatever order they see fit, and providing additional side areas to explore. While you can complete the game without having visited every tile on the map, through exploration you can earn yourself additional loot as well as unlockable artwork, audio tracks and new sets of armour which increase your character's stats in different ways, though you do first have to purchase these from the in-game shop. So each time you begin a new stage in the game, you're usually offered a selection of weapons to choose from. The weakest of the weapons is always a freebie, and you have a couple of others which must be purchased with gold, and overall there's some good variety to these, with everything from pistols and machine guns to grenade launchers and lasers. The levels themselves feature handcrafted scenarios with plenty of variety to them, both in terms of the designs and the objectives you need to complete. You could for instance be faced with a tall thin level armed with a sniper rifle and be tasked with surviving for a set period of time, in a level comprised entirely of platforms where you have to defeat wave after wave of enemies, or find yourself in a wide open level blasting crystal jumpers with a Ghostbusters like beam rifle, and there's a number of different level features which help spice things up a little, such as teleporters or pools of lava. When it comes to the game's enemies, while there are quite a few different versions of the splitter enemies, there are plenty of unique enemy types to keep you on your toes, and at times, the movement patterns of certain enemies even made gameplay feel a little like Gallagher or Space Invaders. Some of the most interesting battles though have to be the boss fights which occur at the end of each chapter, and these fights are generally a little tougher than the standard levels, with each boss having its own attack pattern and multiple waves of enemies for you to contend with. Now overall, I found gameplay in Knights and Guns to be pretty enjoyable. The fact that you can only shoot upwards did feel a little unnatural to start with, but once you get used to this and learn how best to utilise your special abilities and dodge manoeuvres, there's plenty of fun to be had with the game, and it puts a great spin on the classic Pang formula. The game's Endless mode, which sees you trying to survive against endless waves of enemies, contains 9 different levels, each with their own weapon restrictions, and this provides you with an alternative way to earn currency, and it does offer some amount of replayability. So visually, the developers have gone for a cartoony look, which kinda reminded me of a more vibrant version of Darkest Dungeon's art style mixed with a bit of Plants vs Zombies. I love the level of detail applied to both characters and enemies, as well as the different environments you find yourself in, and the explosions and particle effects of the weapons add plenty of colour to battles, making them feel even more chaotic as enemies explode or are split in two. Audio wise, we've got some great sound effects, and the game has a cracking soundtrack featuring a combination of classic heroic battle music and heavy metal headbangers, which really sets the tone for the game, and you're able to actually unlock all of the game's tracks in the shop, allowing you to play your favourites whenever you like. In all, I thought they did a really good job with the audio and visuals on this one. Now when it comes to performance, the game's eShop description says it features 60 FPS gameplay, and while I can't confirm whether it holds a solid 60, I will say that I never experienced any frame rate issues or noticed any slowdown with the gameplay, even when the screen was filled with enemies. When it comes to issues, while there aren't any to report in terms of bugs, there were a few gameplay elements that I wasn't particularly fond of. Firstly, while the game does have a decent selection of weapons, you're restricted to using specific weapons in every single level, and I would have preferred this limitation to apply to a few challenge type levels, whilst also having some kind of unlock system where you could choose to play with any weapon that you liked. My second issue with the game was its life system, whereby each time you die in a level you can choose to resurrect yourself, but this consumes one of your hearts seen at the top of the screen. Losing all of your hearts means that you fail the level, but following this, they're not actually replenished and instead you must buy extra hearts from the in-game shop, and these are not cheap, so you'll likely end up repeating previous levels just to earn enough gold to replenish your lives in the later levels. Finally, each gun in the game only holds a specific amount of ammo in its clip, and I wasn't really a fan of how frequently you had to reload weapons. While this does add a little more challenge to the game by leaving you vulnerable for a few seconds, it felt like I had to reload far too much, which did kinda get a little tedious. All in all though, Knights and Guns is a decent little action arcade game. It offers a hefty campaign mode which is best enjoyed alongside a friend, and if you're a fan of the classic Pang titles, you'll no doubt enjoy this one. When it comes to my own personal rating, I'm going to be giving Knights and Guns 4 out of 5 stars. If you're looking for a fast-paced action game to fill a night with, or something simple but fun to blast through with a friend, then I recommend giving Knights and Guns a go. And that about does it for this review of Knights and Guns on the Nintendo Switch. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed it, let me know your thoughts and opinions on the game in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed this content and want to see more, then please consider subscribing to the channel. For now though, I want to thank you all once again for watching, and until next time, take care and game on.